Now, every success has different stories. My story started with a failure. I was working 12 years for Lehman Brothers in London, and we went bankrupt. I had to carry out my boxes, and life had to be reset. Now, what do? Well, you do the same, but you do it on your own. But when I started my investment bank in Europe, I didn't want to do it like everyone else. So the first thing, you have to have a catchy name. Catcher. That's not the only thing Patrick and I have in common. 5 years ago, we had these people from Singapore booking tickets, and we never met them, and like a few years later, we bumped into them, and since then, we became good friends. And of course, I had to see what Patrick has created here, and I'm highly impressed, and it reminds me very much from our humble beginnings. Now, what is Noah? Noah stands for the survival in the biblical way. Lehman went bankrupt, we had to get rescued, but it also stands for no assholes here. Now, we're expecting this year in our conference in Berlin 4,500 people, and our London edition, also because the venue is smaller, 2,000 people. We are connecting investors with great ideas, and we are mixing in service providers, and we have two concepts. While the left side is our Berlin conference, we're going through all industries we know of, large ones. Some of them are already disrupted. We know what happened to the music industry, but others, for example, the automotive industry, which is the most active one at our conference, together with the fintech industry, those two industries, they're trying to do not repeat the mistakes the media industry or the telecom industry has done, and they try to hedge their bets and become digital. A lot more digital than you may think. Now, that's our event, but let's not talk about too much about this. We are bankers, so that's some of the deals we have done. I'm not going to walk you through those because I'm going to present to you today 22 companies in 15 minutes. Let's talk about quickly the venture capital market. So here you have a chart splitting the VC spendings of the globe into different regions. And the orange bit is Europe, and it hasn't really changed in terms of the distribution. What you see, however, is that China has gained a lot of market share over the time. Now, what is Europe? You think about the big 5 countries, Germany, UK, France, Italy, and Spain. Well, Spain and Italy are really lagging behind on digital, while the Netherlands, for example, is taking spot number 4. So if you think about Europe, you want to check what's going on in these top 3 countries and to some extent in the Netherlands. Now, where do we stand in terms of the overall cycle? And we had a few interesting trends and corrections around 2008, just when Lehman went bankrupt. People started to become a little bit more critical of the companies they invested in. And I think we are back in this phase. Quality matters, and investors are differentiating. Now, if you have a 100 billion fund, as we just heard, you have a lot of pressure to spend the money, and you're going to become, by definition, illoyal to your own principles over time. Now, I'm going to walk you through some of the verticals of the company. Those companies are all going to present at our conference. And we are referring to our event as a business conference, so we have companies on stage for 10 minutes, exactly like here, actually a little bit shorter than here. And we want them to explain to the audience how they make money and where do they stand and what's their model. And here we have online fashion as a category. Who has heard of Zalando? Okay, that's lots of people. That's very good. So Zalando is a traditional online retailer. You buy at the same price you buy in the store, and it's a $10.6 billion valued company today. Farfetch, I call them, they're like the revolution for offline. They're empowering the retail stores. So what they did, not like Zalando, they didn't build a big inventory, or they didn't spend a lot of money on the brand, they're using the inventory of the retailers, they're connected to them. So if you order on Farfetch, you're actually ordering on a small mums and pop shop around the corner. They're like the long tail of online fashion, and also you buy at the same price like in the store, and Farfetch gets a 30% commission. It's an inventory light and a very scalable model, and they're growing very fast. It's also a global business. While Zalando is pan-European, Farfetch is a global business, and so is Lyst, by the way. Who have heard of a company called Trivago, which went recently public in Europe for like 5 billion? They're lead gen for travel. Lyst is a lead gen for fashion. So those three players all have different models. And I would say Farfetch and Lyst are two models which I believe I haven't seen in Asia yet, but I haven't seen a lot in Asia. I'm just here for a short period of time. And I thought I walk you through some models in Europe, which I think are interesting concepts, and maybe there are some creative, inspired, passionate people in the audience who want to copy them. Because as we know from Patrick, copying is a good thing. But it doesn't start with the idea or the copying itself. It's hard work. An idea is worth nothing. Never forget that. You need capital and endurance. Now, the automotive sector, as I said, is probably the hottest digital to disrupted sector we have currently. And to get from A to B today, it's getting bloody complicated. It's like your messenger. I mean, we just used to have SMS. Now you have like a host of different platforms. Same is going to happen in automotive. And car ownership will go down. The car owners might be the manufacturers. You may don't even need to drive anymore. So this sector is probably the one, together with fintech, which is going to see the biggest disruption over the next 5 to 10 years. Flixbus is like Uber for buses. They make ticket revenues. They're pan-European. You know who their biggest enemy is, or their biggest challenger? The Deutsche Bahn, the German railway. They are very, very scared because Flixbus is faster, cheaper, and more comfortable, and on time, most of the time. BlaBlaCar is a kind of car sharing platform for long distance. Now here you have a very interesting dynamic. I had lunch with the corporate development person. It's a company from Paris. They raised $333 million, and their biggest problem was they didn't have enough drivers. So what do? Uber is making lots of ads, and they're trying to do marketing. They basically went to their heavy users and said, you love BlaBlaCar, we love you. We need more drivers. We buy you a car, and you can lower your interest rate if you give the car into the BlaBlaCar system. So the more rides you give back to the system, at some point, you're becoming a driver for BlaBlaCar. So the lesson learned is, if your model isn't working or you cannot scale, sometimes you have to rethink it and you have to adapt it. Get is one of these, it's a bit like Grab. They're trying to fight against Uber and the big firms of the world. It's an Israeli company. They're in the UK, they're in New York, they're in Russia, they're in Israel. They're buying a lot of companies. And if you want to see one company which is really fighting and is in a very competitive market making it, Get is one of those, which you should really have a look at. AutoOne, one of my personal favorites, they raised $600 million. So they're completely eliminating the entire automotive distribution network. So what does that mean? If you want to sell your car, you can sell it on AutoOne. They buy your car within 30 minutes. You drive there, they give you appraisal online, you drive, and they give you the cash after 30 minutes. 80%. The funny thing is, while you wait for 30 minutes for your cash, they're already selling it to a dealer network of 28,000. I don't know, who knows GDSs, like travel distribution systems? Ever heard of like back-end integration? It's like a clearinghouse for the car industry. So they have 28,000 car dealers connected, and you know, there was always one dealer who's just looking for this red Golf at that moment in time, and they buy a premium. They buy it at a 12% premium to the price Auto One bought it. They are the biggest European car dealer. They have over 4 billion car revenues within 3 years. This business model exists in the Middle East, but I'm not sure it exists in Asia, so you want to have a look at it. Travel, one of those industries which has been heavily disrupted. I think after my speech there's an operator carrier coming. Trivago, what a story. There was Expedia, there was Booking.com, and then there was a long tail of other sites. I think Agoda in Asia is very big. So they said, well, for a user to go through all these OTAs, and if it's only 2, it's twice the time. So why don't I create an interim layer and I consolidate their search results and I save the user time and I give them always the best price. That's what they did. They get it also lead gen. Lead gen is a wonderful model because you don't take any risk and you get a lot of revenues. Trivago is worth 5 billion. I was roadshowing the company in London for $500 million 4.5 years ago. Then Expedia bought 60% for $1.05 billion a year later, and now they went public. It's also a global business. And what these guys did, they did TV advertising. 100% of the revenues they spent on television. And they always ran the business at break even. Why? Because there was absolutely 100% commitment to grow. Get Your Guide is similar like an OTA. You don't book flights or hotels, but you book tourist attractions. The London Eye, Madame Tussauds, and so on and so forth. It's one of the biggest companies in that space in Europe. Kiwi, small company from Czech Republic. We love small companies and small countries with great ideas. So what they do, when you book a flight, you usually book with one airline, the outbound and the inbound. They said, that doesn't really make any sense because sometimes the times work differently and you should fly back with another airline. So they break up the journey in 2, which is their edge, and they're growing very fast. Fintech. How much time we have left? So fintech is probably the biggest surprise because you think that disruption happens slowly, especially in large industries. Now, the first company is an online payment company like PayPal. PayPal charges around 2.5% for the merchant. Adyen charges around 0.25%. Okay, PayPal also has a wallet business, but Adyen is one of those companies out of Europe which you should watch. 7 out of the largest 10 internet companies of the world are a customer of Adyen. Give you a little story. It's very hard to get money out of Latin America for many reasons. Taxes and the banking system is very, very tight. So in order to get a license, a banking license in Brazil, they sent a guy to Brazil who went every day for 4 weeks with the person who was supposed to do the signature. He picked him up at the train station, walked him to the office, and molested him as long until he signed. It's persistence. Check24, it's the largest German lead gen business for consumer finance. You probably know companies like Money Supermarket or Compare the Market, BGL. They make 150 million revenues by brokering loans. They make another 150 million for insurances. It's a very large comparison market for consumer finance. N26, that's a Peter Thiel company, which is probably one of the highest profile European startups. They're a pure online bank, and they try to do all the services. They have around 1 million customers now, and they're growing very fast. By the way, if you ever wonder what's this thing on the right, we try to measure momentum via Google Trends. So how many people search for the name on the left? Some of them, like Creditech, have different brand names in countries, so it doesn't make too much sense. Investing.com is like the new Yahoo Finance, and Creditech is a place where you get personal loans. Bumble, they reinvented dating with one little change to Tinder. One change. They empowered the woman. There was a whole thing. And now they're growing. They have over 6-7 million monthly active users. Clue, it's an app for women to track your fertility, your cycles, and so on. Bubble, learning languages globally. They're a very, very big business on a global scale, a pure marketing business like Trivago. Just Eat, restaurant delivery. Is there a restaurant delivery platform in Asia of scale, in Southeast Asia? Okay, I think my time is up. At that point, I usually kick people off stage. These are some SaaS and B2B companies. I almost made it. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention. I'm sure Patrick sends the presentation around.